Yeah, you see, Pasuk 12. So if you look at the Chumash, no, not the Ramban, the Chumash, chapter 12 in Deuteronomy. Yeah.
So 12?
Chapter 12.
Yeah.
Chapter 12, the beginning of chapter 12, right? Yeah. So he says, and these are the decrees and the ordinances that you shall observe to perform in the land that Hashem, God of your forefathers, has given you to possess it, right? All the days that you live on the land, right? Okay. Abate, and what should you do? The first thing he tells you, even though there are many laws that Hashem is going to give you to perform when you come to the land, but the first thing that is mentioned is Abate to Abdun et Kol HaMekomot Asher Abdu Sham Hagoyim Asher Atem Yoshim Otam Et Elohehem Al Heharim Aramim V'al Advaot Utachat Kol Eitz Aranan, right? And you shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations that you shall possess worship their gods, right? On high mountains and on the hills and under every leafy tree. You shall break apart your altars, you shall smash their pillars, you shall and their sacred trees shall you burn in the fire, their carved images shall you cut down, and you shall obliterate their name from that place. Period. Then it says, you shall not do this to Hashem your God. What does that mean? You shall not do this to Hashem your God. What shall you not do? What is?
Worship Hashem in the way that the nation worship their gods?
Not worship Hashem like they do.
Yeah, they do.
Like what? In what way is what's not good about what they do?
The high mountains.
And on the hills and under every leafy tree. Meaning, it says, rather only in the place. Keep reading, next sentence. Rather, instead of that, only in the place where Hashem your God will choose from among all your tribes to place his name there, shall you seek out his presence and come there. There shall you bring your elevation offerings and your feast offerings and your tithes and what you raised up with your hands, your vow offerings and your free will offerings and the firstborn of your cattle and your flocks. You shall eat there before Hashem your God, and you shall rejoice with your every undertaking, you and your households, as Hashem your God has blessed you. Okay, so it sounds from this plain reading of it is like you said, the other nations of the that you are coming into the land, they make a worship place everywhere. You know, on this hill and on that hill and under every tree and in every various places, right? Various places. When you come into the land, you should destroy their ways of worship. Instead, you should not do what they do with your God. You shall go only to the place where Hashem has chosen, and there you shall bring all your offerings and rejoice before God there, in that place. Yes?
Yes.
Now, tell me, why is that important? We're not talking about many gods. We're talking about one God. You want to worship Hashem. Don't do it like they do. In this mountain, in this mountain, in this mountain. Go only to that place which he chooses. Now, today, you go to Beis Torah, somebody else goes to Beis Tefillah, somebody else goes to congregation of Monsey, and somebody else goes to Munkach, and somebody else goes to Sakmar, and somebody else goes to Vizhnitz, and somebody else goes to Beis Tefillah. What? The Torah wants to go out of its way to tell you, do not, absolutely do not do what those nations do when they worship their gods in this hill and that hill and that hill, and under this tree and under that tree, but only to the place that Hashem has chosen.
We have no place.
So, is it so terrible?
So, it's a good question.
Yeah, why? It's a curiosity, no? It's very, very important to the Torah. It's very, very important that is so. So let me tell you one thing, just before we even get to that question. One idea that is mentioned in the Jewish thinking is that this idea of do not do this to your God, remember, do not do this to your God, you said do not worship like they do, right? Okay, so one was said, we were starting with the idea that the Torah says when you come into the land of Israel, you have to destroy all of the places of worship of all the other nations who had placed their places of worship under all trees and on all the hills and in every place. You shall destroy them and obliterate them from under the earth when you come into the land. You shall not do this to your God, but only in the place which he has chosen. There you shall bring your offerings and your free will offerings and your obligations and your tithes. And there shall, yes,
he will choose.
Choose, yeah, so the place where he will
choose.
The place where he will choose.
As you said, he had chosen.
Oh, Asher Yivchar. Yeah, he will choose.
Will choose.
Will choose. Yeah, of course, because he doesn't know. We don't know
He
which
will
one he has chosen
choose
yet.
forever or for that time.
He will choose. Well, the Torah doesn't discuss it, but it seems like it's forever when he chooses Yerushalayim and the Beit HaMikdash, right? Although initially it was not even there. It was a Mishkan.
But
so
it
I
was
guess
because it was not
moved from place to
chosen
place.
yet. The place was not chosen yet. Apparently, right? So when Yerushalayim was chosen, it was conquered, and then the process of building.
It's mysterious.
Yeah, it's mysterious.
It's mysterious, exactly, because for a while it was in a given place, and it seemed only a tragedy in which, they were captured. And all right, okay, I don't know how to go into it, but it seems like eventually God chooses a place, right? And David HaMelech gets the apparition, the vision that this is the place where God will choose his place. How does he know? Well, it was a very difficult time. There was a plague after he counted the people, which is a mysterious. Anyway, what was the sin there? And we can discuss it, but there is a plague.
I do believe that this is the best argument. This phrase is the best argument. You know that the whole controversy that Devarim is a separate book which was written later and so on. The whole 9 yards about it, right? So, and it's based on the Malachim that the Yeshayahu, I think, found that scroll in the temple when he was cleaning it and so on.
It wasn't Yeshayahu.
It was
Chizkiyahu.
not
No,
Yeshayahu.
Chizkiyahu was the king.
Yeah, it was the king. It was the king, but it was not Hiskiah.
No, not Chizkiyahu. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
But then the whole 9 yards of modern biblical scholars came up with an idea that unlike it was composed later, okay? Now, obviously the same people say that the first four are also composed at different time, but just putting this aside, the whole controversy about the book of Devarim, I think, if it would be composed at the time when it was claimed to be discovered, then it would be simply impossible to imagine that it would have the phrase, the place that God will choose. Right? Because if it was written at the time when Yerushalayim was already in place, and the temple was standing on the mount, it would be, it's such a conspiracy to imagine that somebody would write the book as if it would be written earlier, without mentioning Yerushalayim.
They might be very intelligent.
No, but then it is a conspiracy theory.
They're certainly thinking about writing it in such a time as Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking, right?
No,
it says
this is
Moshe speaks and da-da-da. They're writing it as though it has not yet taken place, right? If that's how it was composed, then it's composed, and this is the way that Moshe spoke to the Jewish people before he died, and this is what he said, and he follows up with all these instructions that you will do when you come into your land. and there one day will be a prophet like me, and Hashem will appoint him, and then he dies, and Yeshua takes place. I mean, that's the way you compose a book. Then, of course, you compose it with all the trappings. Not impossible. I'm not sure it's impossible. You might be tempted to say, oh, and there's Yerushalayim that's going to be. But why would you think that you should compose a story in which God and Moshe in the desert are telling them that one day there's going to be Yerushalayim? I don't know.
Because you are living
They
in
were never
Yerushalayim.
there. But they were never there yet. They were in the desert. If you were trying to write an authentic sounding book, you wouldn't say that. I'm not so sure. Anyhow, but let's say, okay, so Yerushalayim is where, so it's only there where God will choose where you bring all your sacrifices and celebrate before God. So I just ask the simple question. The Torah goes out of its way to say, not in this case, that you should not worship those gods, because that goes without saying, you should not worship those gods, but you will destroy those gods in all those places which those people have done, which is probably true that you should do it so that you will not be drawn after worshiping them too. But then it emphasizes this special thing. You should not do this to your God, which you understood from the following sentences. Do this to your God means to worship him in all these various places.
Or in general, in multiple places.
Right, in multiple places. Not even the same, right? That you will not choose to worship your God like those people did. In the desert and on the hills and near the river and near your house and, whatever. But only in the place which he will choose. Will you do all those things? So I'm asking, what's so terrible about that? Why is the Torah so emphatic? Because we now worship God in all these places, right? Worship God in this shul, and you go to Hartford and you worship God in that shul.
Okay.
And I go to the Kotel, and I go to the Ramban shul, and I worship God in my house. Now, I'm not saying there's anything terrible about the Beit HaMikdash, but why is it such a fundamental, you shall not do this to your God, worship him just in every place that you choose, but only in the place which he chooses.
No, does it
Think about that as a
refer? I don't think
fundamental idea.
I don't think that it refers to worshiping in general, because people were, I'm sure, davening in different parts of the land of Israel, and
That's interesting and open to some speculation. Could be.
I would think so.
Could be.
Right? Because there were synagogues which are currently undug, which were existing at the time of the temple, second temple. And therefore, I don't think that the question was, and I think that if we read about responsibilities of Levim and Kohanim, they were conducting some kind of worship services, if I'm not mistaken, in different places.
Where, when they were serving in the temple, according to a certain schedule,
Right.
of a certain number of weeks a year,
Yeah,
different families, their group that did not go down to the Beit HaMikdash would hold a service and fast for half the day and
in different
certain
places.
things. The history of prayer is a very interesting history.
Right.
I mean, I say,
But
let's
let me
say that
finish.
some prayer was done.
All right.
So
let
what
me
is
finish.
what is happening here?
So now, just a second. In addition, worshiping God is not only prayer, and may include many other things. What I think is very clear is referred to here is sacrifices. Karbanot are not supposed to be done anywhere, because very soon we are going to read Karbanot you have to bring to Yerushalayim, but if you want to eat meat, okay, you can still slaughter it in many places. It will not be a service, but it will be, you can eat meat. You don't have necessarily to come to Yerushalayim to have your...
So what's wrong
number.
with bringing a korban outside of Yerushalayim?
Okay. So now that's...
Let's assume that is the ultimate of worship, let's say,
Yes,
right?
ultimate of worship
And
is...
you bring your tithes to Yerushalayim. Of course, I mean, you can speculate that there is something very beautiful and important for a national center
So
where God is...
2 points
you know.
is centralization, Because
I live 250 miles away from the Beit HaMikdash, and I want to
you
bring a
travel
korban.
3 times a
I
year.
don't go to bring the Beit HaMikdash except for this 3 times a year that I go. It
Right.
makes a central
It's fine.
focus for the
It
nation.
really unites the nation. It brings people together. It creates the focal point of the country, which is important. But in addition to this, there is an opinion that it was actually attempt to minimize animal sacrifices because according to Ramban, animal sacrifices is kind of remains of idol worship which existed before. So God and Moshe wanted to make it at least centralized, so it is done in a unified way in one place, and it minimizes the amount of animal sacrifices as a first step to eliminate it.
That is a bold remark.
Okay,
The Rambam never said that.
maybe.
The Rambam never said that.
The Rambam- there
what
are
you
two
said is not
Rambam.
what the Rambam said.
There are 2 Rambams,
There are
right?
many
So
Rambams.
there's
There's a Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim. He
Yes.
never said to eliminate. He
Well-
would never, I don't think he would never have said it. He did say that God
Well, in
had
Mishnah Torah, of
commanded
course,
to.
he never says this.
He didn't say it in the Moreh Nevuchim either.
Okay.
Not in those words. He,
Okay,
people
well-
like to put words into his mouth.
No, that's
But
fine.
he certainly thinks that sacrifices are a compromise with people's needs that are fundamental to many people and in ancient times as well as the present. But once done, once given as a mitzvah, the Rambam never would intimate that there is a process in play which will eliminate the mitzvot in the Torah, that the
Well, you
korban,
can bring-
we shall no longer bring a korban Pesach, and we shall no longer bring a korban tamid every morning, even though the Torah says to do so, because the Torah intends for it to be obliterated. I don't think the Rambam would have said it. I don't think that's what the Rambam did say. But if we leave it out completely, what is it that's important about a central place? I'm just pointing out, the Torah is going out of its way to say, we're going to have sacrifices and tithes being eaten, and celebrations will happen here, right? Samachtem lifnei Hashem Elokecha, in this place. So it's the Ramban might say so, something about it. And then he said, and then he brings a point across that when you look at the Gemara, it learns the words, "You shall not do this to your God," not about worshiping every other place that you choose, but only where he chooses. That's what we have just now said. You shall not do this to your God, that is, obliterate anything that has his name on it. Right? Because it says here, Ibadetem et shmam miktachat hashamayim, you shall obliterate the names of those gods from all those places, from under the heavens. You shall not do that to your God. Right? So from that they learn a halakha that if you have God's name written, you must not erase it. Right? You could not tear if you have of course you don't have an image of God anywhere, but if you have a Torah, you cannot destroy it. Right? You shall not do this. I suppose a mizbeach of the Beit HaMikdash, you shall not destroy. Like I'm telling you to destroy all those, you shall not destroy this.
It's kind of
Interesting.
obvious, right?
Interesting sort of like
It's kind of obvious.
it's a little forced. It's obvious and it's a little forced because it says here, you shall not do this to your God, but only to the place which he has chosen you shall go and do all those sacrifices. So, I mean, you were right. In the plain reading,
Yeah.
it seems like that's the intention, that you shouldn't do it in every place that you choose, but only in the place that he chooses. So the Ramban talks about that. I'm
So
sorry.
one more point. What, you asked the question, what is so important about centralized location? I think that in addition to the fact that it creates the focus of the country in one place, it also creates the unified service for the whole Jewish people. And much less improvisation, which could happen if one family is sacrificing there, the other family is sacrificing there. It may easily become kind of very loose way of how people service
I
service.
suppose, I mean, even though you could prescribe the format,
You
right?
could, but you could.
Here's
but,
what you do when
there's-
you bring a korban.
Right, but as soon as you have SOP, you need somebody who is overseeing this SOP,
Yeah.
right? So, like.
There's a special tribe, or the Levium,
In
who are
opposite
trained
case, in
and do
opposite
this.
case,
and-
everybody knows what kashrut is, and nevertheless, you would prefer that somebody oversee kashrut, so you know that it's under control.
I wouldn't want them to tell me that you could only buy meat from one butcher shop in the country,
No,
but, right? It has a lot of psychological and social features that you have a central place.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, it seems like it helps to focus the people as one people, right? In
Yeah,
one religion, it doesn't
unification.
become sort of, yeah. But that seems to be like that very important here, and I was wondering if there's something about God wanting this, apart from the benefits that come from it in terms of social unity and uniformity and so on. That sounds like a very good form, sounds like a good idea, but you shall not do this to your God. Sounds like it's an insult. I mean, I was looking for a fundamental idea as that apart from the benefits, you know what I mean? Those are utilitarian ideas, what you had mentioned, right? Those are social, political, religious
so what?
benefits. So you shall not this to your God means that God doesn't want to be worshipped like that. I was trying to understand that. If you put it from that point of view, you shall not do this to your God like
It's
they
like an insult.
here and there and there.
Yeah, it's like
It's
an
demeaning
insult.
to your
Demeaning-
God.
demeaning.
It's and I'm trying to put that into words exactly. Should not do this to your God, the sacrifices. I do think about him. I do speak to him. I do worship him in every place. You said then, I certainly now. And I wonder, why is God demeaned by this decentralized worship
Can
that
we
one would
read it
bring
again?
to?
What verse it is?
Yeah, it's 12, it starts at chapter 12, it goes on to 12:1, page 998.
12:1.
12:998, 998. And you read the first 4 psukim about doing away with all those places and so on, and even obliterating their name from that place through verse 3, right? And then the 4th one, Lo tasun kein l'Hashem Elokechem, you shall not do this to Hashem your God. Rather, only at the place that he will choose.
Now, maybe,
And so on and so on, right?
maybe this, as just hypothetical, it says the following, that you shall obliterate, you shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations that you are driving away worship their gods, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every leafy tree. You shall break apart their altars, you shall smash their pillars, and their sacred trees shall you burn in the fire. Their carved images cut down, you shall obliterate their names meaning names of their gods, so let's obliterate their names from the place. You shall not...
From that place, I guess it means from their place, from those places, but anyway, wherever
from
they
that
are.
place, maybe from the land I'm giving you. But it's interesting
So you
that,
shall not do this.
is it a space between Gimel and Dalet in the scroll? Because here it says, it starts like a new paragraph in English, but in Hebrew
Here
not.
in the Hebrew not, I don't see
In Hebrew
it.
not, right?
No.
In Hebrew it's a complete text.
Completely, yeah.
Okay, you shall not do this to Hashem your God, rather only in the place that he... Okay, maybe it is not against many places, but against all these natural places like hills and trees and mountains and again leafy trees. maybe there's something about creating the spaces which are which have some natural features, and
Rather
thus
that he will
connecting
choose,
it.
the place that he will choose would suggest a building rather than
No,
a natural place?
would suggest just one place which is about which we don't know anything, that it is a mountain or hill or tree or whatever. So it will be not worshipping the place, it will be a place where Jews are supposed to worship God.
I'm just confused. I know. We're struggling to find, is it the natural worship that they are talking about, and therefore that is what's being
Maybe.
rejected here?
Maybe.
I guess it's the way, the deeds that he's asking us to don't do that. In the way that they worship their God, we don't do.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
that's what we have said, not to
Doesn't
worship
matter.
their God
Okay,
like they
let
do.
me
right?
read you what it says here.
So let's see the Ramban.
Let's
What?
see, there's a comment here.
Yeah,
So
quoted by
you
Rashi,
shall
I
not,
think.
you shall I don't know. You shall not do this to Hashem. The sages took it for granted that Moses surely had no need to warn the people literally not to destroy the temple or synagogues, as they had been commanded to destroy the idols. Rather, he meant to say that Jews may not burn incense whenever they wish.
Wherever they wish.
Wherever they wished, as did the Canaanites.
Right.
Alternatively,
That's the second-
Jews are
that's the second
forbidden to
idea. Now the
erase
third
God's
one-
name. Yes, this is it. Homiletically, Rabbi Ishmael taught that Jews should be careful not to commit sins that will cause them to be exiled.
From their holy
Exiled,
places.
exiled.
And their holy places
Their holy
destroyed.
places.
In other words, they worshipped gods in such a way and had such a corrupt society that brought them to be destroyed, like I am going to
Yeah.
command you to do. Don't do this to your God, meaning don't behave like they behaved in such a way that will require me, it's a very far-fetched midrash, right? That's Rashi. That will require me to also destroy this place which I choose.
Or no, not necessarily. You can look at it as easier.
Plain and simple.
I
They'll not
understand.
commit sins that will cause them to be exiled and their holy places being destroyed.
But
Holy
the
places meaning
Right.
the
I understand,
tabernacle
but
or
ex-
the Beit HaMikdash.
but exile, it doesn't say, I will exile them, but it may say that they will be exiled if they will not deserve to live in the land. They will be exiled,
what I
and those who capture the land will destroy.
Will
the
destroy
holy
their,
places.
their places.
Right, so God will not protect.
Yes, we are splitting hairs about how they will be exiled. But they will not deserve to stay. Don't behave in such a way that you will not deserve to stay so that your holy places will be destroyed
Yeah,
and that you will be exiled.
I think it's a pretty good reading. I really like it.
It's a very far-fetched one for the pshat of the pasuk, but it's nice, cute, it's nice. It's Rashi, right? I mean, it's not plain. It's not plain understanding. Don't do this. I want you to, when you come into this land, I want you to destroy all those places in which they worshipped all over the place and obliterate their names. Don't do this to your God, but only to the place which I go. I mean, okay, if you like it, it's very nice, but it's certainly an ethical imperative, right? Don't behave like they did, which brought about their demise, so that you will meet the same fate. Don't do this to your God.
Don't do it to your God.
Okay. Lo tasu kei lashon. So Ramban, what does Ramban says? The first meaning is lo tasum, don't do this. Lahaktir lashamayim b'chol makom ki im b'makom asher yivchar. Right? Don't burn incense, I guess, or bring sacrifices. Right? To all the places. Why they mentioned only incense in there, I don't know. But anyway, right in every place that you choose, but only to the place he chooses. That's the plain understanding that we started.
Yeah.
Then davar acher, another interpretation of this, do not do, this to your God. When I told you to destroy their altars and to obliterate their names, don't do that.
This is kind of trivial.
Don't do that. That seems obvious, right? Hazara lemochek et Hashem v'lenotetz even echad min hamizbeach o min hazara. That would be a prohibition, therefore, to obliterate God's name or to break any stone from the mizbeach, from the altar, or from the azara, from the structure of the place where God will choose. Amar Rabbi Ishmael. By the way, I mean, this is almost a communication that you had just read. Amar Rabbi Ishmael, v'chita ale al datcha sheYisrael notzim hamizbachot. Is it conceivable that God has to tell the people not to destroy God's places?
Yeah.
It seems far-fetched. Ela shelo yasu kemaasehem v'yigmeru avonotehem lemikdash avoteichem licharev. Lashon Rashi. Therefore, just what we just read. Do not behave in such a way that will bring it about that it will be required that your mikdash is going to be destroyed like them, like theirs was. That's exactly what we read. So far, so good. That's the Rashi. Then he says, "V'divrei Rabbi Yishmael smach shel agadahem." He says, this view that you just now heard about is a support of a legend or a kind of a parable. Let's see, there's a little note here. Why is there a note? Don't go in Chevelle.
No.
What's the note? Smach shel agadat klomar ein kavanato lachlok v'lomar shelo ba'a katuv l'mochek et Hashem v'katuv lomar ki ikar katuv l'mochek et Hashem ma she'eino menusakim l'dvar she'en asmachta v'ein lokim alav אבל עדיין אין למוחק את השם מלכות לפי שהוא לאו שבכללות, לא לכן הביא מימרה מסכת במשפטים. All right. He says, okay, this is another opinion. It's a worthy agada. Aval hakatuv kedad rabotenu azhara lemochek Hashem. But really, halachically, the derivation from this pasuk is in fact to create a prohibition from the Torah to one who erases God's name. Umeforash Masechet Makot, it's in Talmud. V'ha ika mocheket Hashem delaki v'azharte mihacha lo tasum kein shal yovzachem. The Gemara says there that a person who obliterates God's name actually receives flogging, which is malkot, for prohibition, for violating a prohibition directly written in the Torah. So when you say that this pasuk is a derivation for that prohibition, they took it literally, rather than just, sounds nice, right? But they actually think that this pasuk actually says, Lo tasum kain, means don't destroy something that is in the mikdash, or don't obliterate God's name like I told you to do to them. Must not. So it's allowed. It's one of the lo tases of a Shabbat Torah that you get malkot for. It has to be a very formal prohibition, right? Not just an understanding. You might ask, the Rashi himself asked, is it possible that the Torah will go out of your way to tell people that they shouldn't destroy God's name? That's what it started him going, Rashi, right? Rashi says, must it be conceivable that the Torah would go out of its way to prohibit such a thing? Meaning that it's not allowed, but rather don't behave in such a way that would make you have to be exiled. So it sounds from Rashi that he doesn't really take seriously the malkot being allowed minat Torah from that pasuk, right?
Yeah,
Seems
but
far-fetched that the Torah
malkot is a very formal thing.
Sure, that's why it's got to be a real pasuk.
Yes, a real pasuk, and if pasuk, even if Rashi doesn't think that this is, but because pasuk is there, there's no way around it.
But it's got to be meaning what it means.
Yeah, meaning.
It means what it means.
Yeah, it means what it means.
No, it doesn't mean don't worship in every place, but only in the place that I need. Right? It means don't obliterate their names. Obliterate their names, but don't do this to God. I mean, in other words, it's narrow now. It's become formalized as a prohibition directly. Then you can find within every pasuk, apart from its halachic formality, there are all kinds of medrashim you could say about it. That's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But the Ramban wants to say that don't misunderstand Rashi to say that the prohibition is not really a formal prohibition. It is, because the Gemara says you get malkot for it, for that obliterating of name. Apart from the fact that you can say an agada and all kinds of other things about it. Okay, fine.
So a question, because saying that don't do that the way, in such a way that they do it. So they write down the name of their gods and they erase the names.
No.
So why you say
no,
you
no,
don't
you
erase
will
it?
go
No,
in there.
you must destroy the name of their gods from under the heavens. And you must not, you, the Jewish people, when you come into the land, you must destroy the names of those gods. And you must not destroy the name of your God. That's all. Period. Not, apart from the fact that you shouldn't, that's another understanding.
Yeah.
You must not erase God's name. You must not destroy his altar.
Mhm.
All those things that I told you to do to their religion, you must not do to yours. Straight. It's the least likely, if you were just going to, without the Gemara, if you were just going to read this, it would not necessarily occur to you that that should be the best understanding of this pasuk. Your first understanding was, don't worship God like they did. You must only go to this place which I choose, right? I mean, when you read this pasuk, that's what you would usually say. But you see that the Gemara actually discussed this as the obliterating of the name. You must and you must not do that to your God. Period. That's what they took formally from this pasuk. Okay, so then he says, V'lashon sifri, minayin lenotetz even achat, Rabbi Yishmael omer, minayin lemochek ot achat, min Hashem sheover below taseh, shenemar Rabbi Yehuda b'mishma below tasun kein. Okay, another, he's quoting also the sifri that shows that how do you know that if one erases even one letter from God's name that he gets malkot? From this pasuk. Okay, another proof that it is formally understood that way. ודברי רבי ישמעאל אינם במחלוקת, אבל הם ביאור כי מוחק את השם כנוצץ אבן מן המזבח. ואם כן, יהיה פירוש הכתוב שנתעשם את מזבחותם ואבותם שמם וכל המקראו, ולא תעשו כן השם אלוקיכם, לנתוץ את המזבחו ולעבד שמו. אבל תנו כבוד לשמו ולמזבחו. But rather you should honor his name and honor his mizbeach and go to the place which he chooses to sacrifice. In other words, that's transition. All right? He's trying to get it both ways, that you can read it in a flow. I tell you to destroy their altars, and I tell you to obliterate their names. Don't do that to your God, meaning destroy and obliterate the name of God, but rather honor it. And to the place which he chooses, you go to worship rather than to destroy, rather than to abuse it. And you know what I mean? In other words, that's from do not to do. From the negative to the
But
positive.
it doesn't say rather honor him.
No.
It says rather only
He put
at
those
the
words,
place.
the Ramban put that in there.
I
Because that's where you're going to worship. So I guess that's where you're going to show honor, right? Ve'hevetim shama olotechem. And we don't. Yeah, Sham Lishkeno, where he will take his name to dwell there. Tidrishu, you shall search, or you shall ask for. Yeah, you shall. How does he translate it? You shall. Which pasuk? I'm at the end of pasuk 5. You shall seek out his presence and come there, right? Okay, so the Ramban actually also goes on to that pasuk number 5, but rather to the place, right? You see that pasuk number 5, you shall not do this to Hashem, but rather to only to the place where Hashem your God will choose from among your tribes to place his name there, shall you seek out his presence and come there. So listen to this pasuk with the Ramban, it's beautiful. Shetelchu me'eretz mirchakim. What is tidrishu? He's trying to work on the word seek. Why, he's already said that this is the place you're going to bring your sacrifices. This is the place you're going to bring your tithes. This is the place you're going to bring your free will offerings and your obligations. And he enumerates what you're going to do there. What is seek? Tidrishu. Lidrosh means to search for. You lost something and you're trying to find it, or your child got lost and is far away. You're searching and asking for where he is, right? So he says that's an important word here. And listen to this. Shetelchu me'eretz merchakim. You shall go even from very far away. V'tishalu, and you will ask whoever you meet. Ana derech beit Hashem. How do I get to the house of God? Right? V'tomru, ish el re'ehu, and you will say, each one to his friend, L'chu v'na'aleh el har Hashem el beit Elohei Yaakov. Let's go up to the mountain of God, to the house of the God of Jacob. Kilashon, like another expression, Sion Yishalu Derech Heina Penehem, which is a quote from the prophet Yirmiyahu, that one day people will say, they will ask for Zion, the way to direct their faces. Okay, prophecy about the people who seek, yearn for the way to get to Yerushalayim. Right. So you see that here there is. If you asked where he said talked about the honoring, he's taking the hint from this pasuk, right? To that place you shall yearn, you shall ask for, you shall, be magnetic attraction to, emotionally seeking the place where God is, right? That to him is important about this pasuk. And then he says, "B'sifri tidrishu darosh al pi hanavi." What is tidrishu? Request. There's another word, lidrosh. Word lidrosh is a complicated word. It's used in many expressions. For example, lidrosh, if I owe you money, you come and you request it. It's time for you to pay me. Right? You're asking for something, lidrosh. Right? Or I'm lost and I want to find it, lidrosh. We just talked about that before, right? To seek something. Lidrosh, I have a pasuk and I don't understand it, and I make a drash. What is a drash? I am intellectually, with my mind, exploring, trying to find my way to the meaning of something, which is the derivation of a drash, lidrosh. So you see, the word drosh is enigmatic. It's a multi-use. So another expression in the Sifri is tidrishu darosh al pi hanavi. Go to the Navi and ask him, when is it going to, the Beit HaMikdash going to be built? I mean, when do we going to get the Beit HaMikdash? Yachol tamtin, maybe you shall wait until a Navi comes and tells you, Shiomar lecha Navi, Talmud lamar, leshakno tidrishu uvata shama. Oh boy, that's a very free, he's using a lot of freedom with the pasuk. Leshakno, to make the dwelling of God, you must demand, darosh, and come there. If you remember the pasuk, this is a warping of the plain meaning of the pasuk, because the pasuk says, maybe not. Listen where the commas are. You should look at the Chumash. Look at pasuk hey. But rather to the place. Asher yivchar Hashem Elokechem mikol shiftechem. That God will choose from all of your tribes. Lasum shmo sham, to put his name, to place his name there, comma, leshikno tidrishu, to make him dwell, you shall request. Seek. You shall seek. Well, you know now he's talking about request. In this word, he's talking about the request. Uvata shama, and come there. So if you didn't look at the commas, you would usually write that place which God has chosen from among all your tribes to put his name there, to make it dwell, comma, tidrishu, to that place you will seek and come there. But no, he's saying, no, the comma is before that, where the place where Hashem will put his place, well, that's the way we read it, right? This is a Masoret. The Masoret is there is a comma. Oh, there is in the writing.
In English?
In the trump. There is none?
No.
That's a transgression. To place his name there, shall you seek out his shall you seek out his presence? Leshikno is a verb, not leshchinato tidrishu. He's talking about like you shall seek out his shchina. But that's not the word leshikno mean. It's a bad translation. You notice, especially the Ramban, is certainly going out of his way to make the statement now that when you don't have a Beit HaMikdash, let's say the time after Yehoshua conquered the land, and God says, one day after you conquer the land, I will choose a place and you will come there that will be the Beit HaMikdash. He said that to them in the Midbar. So, L'shikno tidrishu uvata shama, according to the Ramban here, is that you shouldn't wait for some prophet to come around after you conquer the land. You shouldn't wait for some prophet to come along and say, Let me
No,
tell
it's
you,
time.
the time has come, God has chosen this mountain, let's go and bring our mizbachot. You shall show your enthusiasm and your searching for this and seek eagerness for this and say to the Navi, what's going on here? Why don't we have the Beit HaMikdash? When are we finally going to get the Beit HaMikdash? When is Hashem going to be? It's a very interesting dynamic, right?
In today's world.
Amazing, right? So great Zionism, great Zionist approach, right? It's Rav Kook talking, right? You have a chutzpah. You have to have a little chutzpah. In fact, that's one of the major tenets of Rav Kook is that there's such a thing as chutzpah de Mashiach. There's an arrogance that is the time, boiling arrogance is the time that is characteristic of the time of the Mashiach. When people get impatient and clamor for an eagerness for the final redemption, that's a sign that things are coming. You know, it's a dynamic. It actually awakens the redemption itself. It's a dual energy that takes place. So, I mean, the Ramban is saying this is what this is what the Torah is saying. When you come into the land, you shall destroy their places and start demanding that God come and choose His place.
Yeah, don't wait for the miracle. Just do it.
Just do it. Well, or at least demand it, right?
Yeah, but
Tidrishu min hanavi.
right. But
He doesn't say that people should just build a Beit HaMikdash.
no,
but,
he doesn't.
right.
He doesn't. But he means
Al
that
tamtin. Don't wait. Ad she'omer lecha navi. Therefore, that's why the pasuk says leshikno tidrishu. To make him dwell, must you request and come there.
right.
Drosh umatzav achar kach yomar lecha navi. You request and you find a place, and then the Navi will tell you.
Right. So in other words, he's saying that God needs Jewish people to have initiative or to have desire for Him to come. Because if everybody is going to sit down and just wait, that's a different story.
It reminds me of a pasuk which we once talked about in our Shmoneh Esrei, not a pasuk, a sentence. It says, we say it every day, 3 times. I once brought it up to you, you didn't like it too much. It says, Et tzemach David avdecha mehirat tatzmiach. The seedling of David, may you quickly sprout, meaning start the Davidic dynasty. Ve'karno tarum b'yeshuatecha, and may his horn, again an expression, rise up in your salvation. Ki, why? Ki liyeshuatcha kivinu kol hayom. Because we hope for your salvation every day. That's why. Our desire is constant. Do it, because our desire is constantly asking for this, hoping for this. Right? Who says God should do it because you hope? Because that's what He wants. He wants actually for you to request.
So why I didn't like it?
I don't know.
You said that I didn't like it?
Yeah, the word
Really?
key. There's something about it. Well, maybe you like it now. So I mean, there was a time when we were talking about key.
I don't. In this case?
Yeah, I think so. I brought it up as one of them.
Maybe I didn't understand.
Oh, it's okay. Doesn't
No, I
matter.
like it.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, in other words, there's a need for the desire to be expressed. And Rashi and the Ramban goes on to say very cryptically. He says, "V'chein ata motzei b'David." And this is what you find in David's time. Okay.
It's interesting to
Now
understand what
I will tell you what he meant exactly. There is a time in Korach.
Yeah.
Korach, do we have it here, Korach? Yeah, where's Korach?
Korach is numbers. Not Devarim.
Balak,
Oh,
before Balak. Right?
right, before Balak.
Who
Wait.
Korach. So when there was a time when Korach and his people gathered the people, like a mob, towards Moshe.
Yeah.
And they all sort of wondered, who's going to win here, right? Hashem says to Moshe, you separate, to Moshe and Aaron, separate yourself from this entire terrible, evil generation, community, and I will destroy them utterly. Got very angry. Right? So Moshe says to him, is one person going to sin and you're going to destroy everyone? Sounds like the Abraham Avinu talking, right? Are you going to destroy righteous people with evil people? But that's not what he said. He says, is one person going to sin, and you're going to destroy everybody? So the Ramban takes up this. See, he says, right, can't argue with them, so on and so on. So Ramban there asks a question that everybody asks: how could Moshe say is one person sinning? Not only one person is sinning. The people did gang up together and said, let's see what's going to happen. Who's going to win now? They're losing faith in Moshe, and they're mocking Moshe's authority by even presuming to follow Korah. So what does he mean by that? So he says, no, he doesn't mean that. He means to do what leaders usually do. If you want to defend somebody, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of bad things, he meant to say, they're really sinning, it's true, but the one who instigated all of this, the one who really caused them all to sin, he's the one who should be punished. Don't punish them. Have mercy on these people because they don't know what they're doing. It's true they're misbehaving, but it's not so, it shouldn't be as bad as him. Even though literally he didn't say that. He said, this one sins. That's why he didn't use the phrase of Abraham, will you kill a righteous person along with the non-righteous person? Because that would presume that he's trying to say about the others that they're righteous. You know, he's choosing his words very carefully. Is one going to sin and the others be punished? In other words, one is going to make a big sin and they're going to be punished?
Abraham then changed the argument. The argument of Abraham is very, very
Then he talks about a few people. A few people.
Then he stops saying that others are righteous.
No,
He's saying,
correct.
if only 5 or 10, 10 are righteous.
Before that he says, you must not destroy the righteous with the non-righteous.
Because his argument goes from justice to compassion.
I only brought up the first sentence that he mentioned, which is not mentioned here. You're right, it's completely different. So the Ramban says, I'll give you an example of another leader who did the same thing. And that was David HaMelech. And then he tells the whole story. What's the story? That David decided one day to count the people. Why did he want to count the people? Because he had just won the wars and he wanted to see how many people he had under his command. His general, in fact, felt that that was not too appropriate. He says, why do you have to count the people? Everyone's at peace now and everything is good. Why do you have to count the people? David says, I want you to count the people. He demanded it. So Abiatar goes and, I think it was Abiatar, right? He goes and counts the people. As soon as he counted the people, a plague starts. Before that, the Navi comes to David and he says, you've done a terrible thing and you have to choose from among 3 punishments. Is it going to be an enemy who will come to destroy you? Is it going to be poverty and starvation like a drought? Or is it going to be a plague? He says, I choose a plague. Why do I choose a plague? Because I will then be under God's direct punishment, which God can choose to either punish or to have compassion, and not to be put into the hands of the enemy who will do whatever he wants and I will never get compassion from him. Right? Which, by the way, parenthetically, is a philosophical idea all its own, which would mean, which would suggest that...
This is what we say in Tachanun, right?
Yeah, which would say, we say it in Tachanun that's the sentence. It's the sentence that he said to him. Which would suggest that once you're in the hands of an enemy, God's compassion will not help you. I put that on the side in parentheses, because otherwise it wouldn't have made any difference, right? If God is the one who commands how much punishment you will get by the hands of the enemy and will stop him when he has compassion, then why are you so afraid of that? Let's not answer the question. I don't want to, it will be too long. It seems like God gives freedom to the enemy. Once he gives freedom to the enemy, you're going to get to shmettered even if he has compassion on you. So I want the plague. Good. So the plague starts. Many people die. Many people die. They die. And the plague comes closer and closer to Jerusalem. And when it comes closer to Jerusalem, he sees the malach with a sword. He has a vision of the malach with a sword about to smite Jerusalem. And he cries out to God and he said, why do you punish the people? Punish me, I am the one who sinned. Sounds like a good prayer, right?
Yeah.
So do you imagine to yourself that God was punishing the people because of something that David did? The Ramban says. You got it all wrong. If you look at the chapter, when this is taking place, you will see that it starts by saying, and Hashem in his anger at the people incited David at them. Period. And David counted them because he wanted to count them. You have to read that first sentence according to the Ramban and understand that God was angry at the people anyway for something else. And they're being punished for something else that they had done wrong. And David understands that. And he, like Moshe, is trying to say, I am the real sinner. I know they're sinners. But I am the real sinner. Don't punish them anymore because I am the one who's the king and I led them astray and da-da-da-da-da. What's going on, right? Because he counted them, it's only one sin. Why do they have to get killed? So the Ramban says you have to read the earlier chapters in the book and say that the people violated this pasuk. That we are now, Tidrishu l'shikno tidrishu v'batasham. There were wars. And David HaMelech won the wars. And he himself, 2 chapters before this place of the plague, he comes to God and he says, I feel terrible. I am living in a castle, and the ark and Hashem is living in a tent. I can't live with this, it's terrible. So Hashem says, Hey tavta asher dibarta, you are showing a proper attitude. You are right to feel this way. And ever since I came into this land, Hashem says, and I conducted all these wars, nobody has come to say, where is the place of God? Right? No one has come to say that. And you have finally said it. And it so happens that I will not have you build it, but it will be your son who will build it. Da, 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 da. The next chapter, or maybe 2 chapters later, and God, in his anger at the people, incites David at them, and David then counts them. You just sort of like quickly pass through that, right? And David counts, and then there's this plague. So when David says to God, I am the real sinner, punish me, don't punish them anymore, he was meaning to say, like Moshe, I understand that they are wrong. I understand from what you told me once why you are angry at the people, that they did not...
For what God was angry at people?
Because they were not demanding to bring the Beit HaMikdash. L'shiknoti drishu v'batashama. They were not
So
demanding.
God started plague
At the people
only
for
after David asked.
No.
It's just-
He concocted a stratagem to start. That's a little peculiar why he needed that, right? But David counted the people.
Before
at that
he was
time.
happy with people, but now.
No, he wasn't happy with people. He was unhappy with the people before. That's what the Ramban is trying to say. He was unhappy with the people. David understood that he was not killing innocent people because of his miscounting.
So
That
he
the
was
Ramban
killing-
rejects
he was
altogether.
killing people because they didn't
have the attitude of
They
wanting the final resting place of God. They were satisfied that they won the war. Let's go to our farms and make happy and raise chickens, and we're fine, satisfied. When God tells us there's going to be a Beit HaMikdash, okay. Obviously God felt bad because he said, all this time I've been waiting for somebody to say, when are we going to have this? And you are the only one who has come.
Yeah, but all
So-
this time while he was waiting, he didn't punish the people.
No. No, okay, so you're asking a good question. It's peculiar, right? Peculiar. But the Ramban brought that chapter as an example of leaders who know that the masses are inappropriate, but when they go into their defense, they choose a central figure who might themselves or some other central figure who instigated them or who is the real sinner and say, don't punish everybody. They don't say they're righteous, but don't punish everybody, punish me, or punish him, don't punish everybody. He brings an equivalence between...
There's a difference.
Very different, because here Moshe is saying that about Korah,
Yes.
but here he's talking about himself.
Yes.
But why would it be so necessary to build the Beit HaMikdash? Because they were watching Hashem in the altar.
Where, what?
So what are you saying? They were delayed.
They didn't have an altar. They didn't have an altar.
Huh?
They didn't have an altar at this time. The Aaron was sitting in a tent.
Yeah, but what is the place?
And God, no, it's not, there wasn't any worship there. It was not the place God had chosen. God has said, when I come into the land and you will conquer it, I will choose a place to make my dwelling, and there you will bring your sacrifices and your prayers and so on, right? That's what he told them in the Midbar.
So what that was in Shiloh.
That's what he told them in the Midbar. And there's no Shiloh anymore now. There's no Shiloh. It's been destroyed.
In the time of David.
David's time, it was destroyed. The time it was destroyed.
So in this
It is
time
sitting.
there
It is
no
sitting in a
place.
tent. There is no place.
Yeah, and even
And when-
Philistines
And
took
when
it for
the
some
Philistines
time.
took it, and then he captured it back, and then he
Yeah.
brought it into somebody's house, and then he took it from his house, and he brought it to.
When the
But
Philistine.
it is sitting near his castle.
Mm.
And when the angel comes and stops the plague at the top of this Har Habayit, David gets the vision, then the plague stops. When he prayed this way, the plague stops. And he saw that must be the place which God has chosen. He took that as a message that because the theme is not choosing God's place. And therefore now he sees, oh, that must be God's place. You see how he connects, the Ramban
Yeah.
connects the drama. And he goes up there and he sees the field of this grinding, threshing floor of Aravna, and he convinces him to sell it to him, and so on and so on. He says, this is the place which God has chosen. So you see there, the Ramban is connecting l'shiknoti d'rshu v'atashama that we have in this pasuk as the great sin of the Jewish people,
This is
in
the
not,
third-
in not pushing.
This is the third place which is purchased.
So in this
Well,
way,
he refused to take it as a gift from.
Yeah,
This.
only purchasing, because
Yeah.
nobody should sort of say, I gave it to them as a gift.
There's-
Yeah,
so
right.
following
That
that,
one, and the Marat Machpelah,
And Shechem.
and Shechem of Yaakov, where Yosef will be buried. Three places that were purchased.
Three most controversial places today.
Well, the rest of Eretz Israel was purchased with blood,
But,
not money.
sure, but these are formal acquisitions.
Contracts. Yeah.
Formal acquisitions.
And what's the idea?
No, it's just interesting that these are three places which are most problematic nowadays. King of Machpelah, Hebron, Yerushalayim.
Yeah, Rashi seems to imply that David, that Abraham bought it so that nobody would ever question its belonging to the Jewish people and to Abraham and his descendants, because once you buy it, everybody knows a contract is a contract.
Yes.
And of course, Rashi didn't know how wrong he was.
Rashi knew
So our
already
question is-
perfectly, just very first comment to the first verse of Genesis.
Yeah.
the question
They will say
is,
that you're
People will
robbers.
come and
They will
say
say
that
that
you
you're
are
robbers.
robbers. It just-
Well, then, why emphasize the contract of a sale? All right.
the contract-
But I thought that is a very telling way that the Ramban, in this short Ramban,
This is
understands
very good.
l'shiknoti drusho.
This is
You
very
must request, you must desire, you must
This is very,
you must be
this
driven
is,
so
this
this
is
word
very-
can we take in for this time, for example,
for
Yes.
this time,
well, every time,
to
for
get
all time,
excited to,
for all
hey,
time.
yes.
That's what the Lubavitchers said. The
Animami.
Lubavitchers taught the children. My daughter, who was 4 or 5 years old, went to a summer camp, in a day camp in the Lubavitchers in Cleveland when we were there, between pre-K and kindergarten. So she came home one day and she was singing the song, "We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait." You know that song?
Yes.
Yeah, Lubavitchers teach that song. So then she stopped singing and she said, "Ima, do you think it would be okay if I sing the song, but I really want him to come after day camp is over, because it's very nice in day camp, and if he came now, it would be over." She was 4 years old. She wanted to know if it was okay for her to sing the song, if she really didn't mean it right now. And that's the truth for all of us adults, right? First of all, the song of the Chabad is according to the Ramban. You have to say, we want it
As
now.
long, as long as,
We want it now.
as long as it is.
As long as I can still make my money and not do it right away and finish my degree and
What's wrong?
work with the stock market and
No,
whatever.
I don't understand. This
Well-
I don't understand. So what's wrong if Mashiach comes
A
now?
little bit later? Oh, no.
No.
I'm saying, I
That's
understand.
good.
We all.
You don't need stock market after that.
No, well, okay,
Maybe.
maybe. But I'm
But
saying,
at least-
I'm mocking, I'm saying, we
Yeah.
do say things like we want Mashiach now, but like my daughter,
No,
when
but
she was
I-
4,
I'm just
we
wondering-
probably, at least we probably don't really mean it as saying, please, 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 right now.
Yeah, because
I'm just
I'm a
making a
party
joke.
and I don't want the party over.
I'm being a little self-criticism, not
Yeah.
anybody else.
I'm wondering what Chabad means when they say we want Mashiach.
They mean what the Rav Kook meant. They mean Achshav.
Yeah, I understand.
No longer any waiting. We want it now. It's the chutzpah of the Mashiachata. The Rav Kook has a whole long phrases about it in a few places. But that's what the Ramban is saying. L'shiknot tidrishu.
You should want. You should.
Yeah.
you
Want,
should
desire, demand,
request.
It's like to saying Hashem, hey, I'm going to town, so make everything able, look the hotel and pay the fare and whatever. I'm gonna be there. So
I'm coming. We want him to come. Yeah, and it sounds like we can request the Yeshua, ki lishuatcha kivinu kol hayom, because all day long we hope for it. So it's an interesting Ramban, that short Ramban. I remembered it, that's why I chose it. And the link to David. I mean, that little cryptic phrase, there happens to be a footnote about it, and I saw it long ago. From Korach is the way I started with it, because of that one time. You should see the Ramban. There's a long Ramban on the left-hand side, on that pasuk, Ki aish echad yakta, v'lakol ha'am tiktsof. That pasuk, if you want to see the Ramban on that, you just read it, you'll see, he enumerates.
I'll take Ramban. I have.
You have that
Ramban. It's great.
So look at it in the Torah. Good.
By the way, we have Ramban right here.
I think that's the one he has.
That's the only one.
I think he has the one, yeah.
You took from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not the new one that you're
No,
talking
new
about.
one is dark blue. So well done.
How different than
This is, huh?
How different from
Because this is pure English. There is no Hebrew here,
No.
and there is no explanation. And over there, Ramban there is it's Chumash, it's the Torah text, Ramban, and explanation on Ramban.
The same ones as the footnotes of the Chevel?
I
This
don't
one?
know.
These same footnotes?
I don't know. Okay, I suggest look at this. I can bring you any of these 5, but I think that it's so.
It's probably in
So
Tuvias,
well
I can take a look.
Hmm?
These Chumashim are down below, let's take them
Let's
down.
go.